My name is Richard Douglas, also known as Joe Buhdha and Dougie to some. I'm a music producer. I run a company called Can't Stop Won't Stop. I also promote events across the city and I specialise in being black. I was born in Nottingham in 1970. I grew up in an area called Hyston Green, or Forest Fields as well, on a road called Radford Road, which is like the Harlem of Nottingham. My mum and dad come from a parish in Jamaica called Clarendon. My dad's from a small little parish called Beckford Cruel. And my mum was from a town called Thompson Town, up in the hills in Clarendon. I was there recently, in the last 6 to 8 months, because my mum passed away 2022, so we was out there to bury her up in the hills in Thompson Town, which kind of sounds weird because you're burying your parents, but it was actually quite a magical, spiritual experience, because the last time I was there was when I was a kid. That's where she wanted to be, and it just was a beautiful send-off that she had, so yeah. Dad came on one of the Windrush boats, because there was a few different boats coming from the Caribbean, so he did the actual 2-3 week trip. My mum came on British, well, it wasn't British, it was BOAC for the older generation. She came on a flight in 1961. My dad came in 1950 something. My dad initially came to London and then he came up to Nottingham. He had friends here and he lived in Sneinton. My mum came in 61. She went to London, then to Manchester, then to Nottingham. I think she lived in Lenton for a bit. They got together in 1967, and they had my sister in 1967, and then they had me in 1970. And then we moved from there to Spondon in Derbyshire. My dad worked for British Rail, and my mum was a seamstress. She worked for various different companies, and she also worked for herself. Always worked for herself, I should say, to be honest. One of the rooms in the house when I was growing up was just basically a sewing factory. So she'd have lock stitch machines and overlockers and all kind of things for cutting out patterns and stuff like that. And I'd have to go to the shop with my sister and go and buy material or help her hold something up while she's cutting. Come here, why all this? And we have to do all that, which was good. Me and my mum had a little business, but when I started doing my hip hop promotions, that's a bit later on, but yeah. I would say, it's weird to say, but my mum was quite forward thinking, because Jamaican kids always got tales of beating and this and that. Yeah, well, you're out and you get some beating. We never got no beat. Well, I never got no beating. My sister might say something different, but I was the youngest of the bunch. However, my mum was one for, if you couldn't talk and discuss why you're beating your kid, there's no point you beating him if you can't talk to them. They're not going to learn nothing by licking them. So she's quite forward thinking in that way, in terms of parenting and the way she did her parenting style. There was a lot of reasoning and a lot of talking. And my dad was super cool and mellow. He didn't even raise his voice. He just liked to laugh and joke. He was just run joke and just fun. Well, my parents really were strong in terms of they didn't take no shit from white society or institutional racism, and they wasn't super educated or intellectual in the sense of, academically, but they were in the sense of who they were. So that passed on to me, and especially my dad, who was always playing my Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. And you're hearing that, the chants and the lyrics and the fight, the power and know yourself and all these things as a 6-7-year-old, it's going to have an effect on you subconsciously. And my mum didn't take no shit. She was the gangster in the house, Ferris. So she grew me up in a certain way. When I encountered racism or discrimination, I challenged it straight away. I wasn't scared to stand or be shy, or I hit it head on. Whether it was with my mouth or sometimes with my fists, especially on the football pitch, because we'd go to places like Mansfield, Gedley and Arnold and get monkey chant or someone call you. The term kick racism out of football, we literally kicked racism out of football, because we used to go to different towns and places and we just fight, whether it's my team or other black team. And most of the teams that I play for were predominantly black football teams, so that's a thing that growing up that we used to encounter. But in terms of direct in-your-face racism, not much. It was more institutionalized, and I kind of understood it as a kid. I didn't know how, but I did. I think the challenges are different as an adult to a young person, but yeah, it's there. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm a club promoter. I deal with it in the clubs, whether it's the owner of the club, whether it's the police, and they have to go to the police. Once you're a black promoter, there's a lot of issues that you're going to have to deal with differently to a white promoter. You know, you're doing black music. It's high risk as far as white society is concerned, even though they want our music in their clubs. If we're doing it, if we're the person putting it on and we're doing it to our demographic, as far as they're concerned, it's a high risk. If they're putting on our music, as in when I say they, I mean white society, putting on black music in a white club to a white audience, there's never high risk. So if I put on a grime event in a club like Rock City, Nottingham, they're going to have to inform the police. There's a lot of issues. I'm going to have to do a lot of checks and blah, 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 risk assessment around me putting it on. But if Tarquin Smith puts it on, there's not going to be an issue for him. He can put that on because that's for his demographic. So there's those challenges. There's always that kind of challenge. I always think there's always a fine line between appreciation and appropriation. So I'm not got no issues in tackling or challenging or discussing things that people will find uncomfortable because the friend's white or the partner's white, or or we live in this white society and people might see you, deem it as some reverse racism, or people sit there and get white fragility. I don't have that kind of issue because I just think it's not as uncomfortable as that trip across the ocean from Africa to the new land. So a few words and a few moments of feeling, oh, this is a bit hard, is not really as uncomfortable as those millions of people that travelled across the ocean and going through 400 years of hardship for us to be sitting here having this discussion through this lens now. Windrush means to me, well, for my parents, for my dad and my mum, it connects all back to slavery. It all comes back to that. We come from Africa, the most prosperous continent on the world. It feeds the world, whether it's the minerals or whatever, as in the people and culture and all different types of things. We've been feeding the world for generations. So Windrush means to me now is that us as this new generation or the next generation or the now generation, whatever generation we are, we've been allowed to get educated now. We can find out information about ourselves and we can pass it on, and we can challenge all the things that have put us in a certain position in society. As we're speaking now across West Africa, they're saying there's these coups. However, I look at it as uprising as black people, and we should globally look at it as uprising because we've been mistreated for hundreds of years. Why is the continent, Africa, the poorest continent in the world? It's the richest continent in the world. So there's obviously the imperialists, the colonialists, that's still going on. So that to me is why when I look at Windrush and where we are now, we're only in a sense that we can talk and we can have a little bit of control in the society or a little grasp of society, but we don't really have much say in how we control our own destiny as black people. We're still under control of the imperial masters. So if Africa's under control of the imperial masters, we all still are. And that's what I love what's happening right now, is that hopefully that the armies and the people who have decided that they're taking over, and they take the teachings from Kwame Nkrumah and Thomas Sankara, and controversially for some people, Gaddafi, wanted a united Africa, which will make united Africa is such a powerful thing for black people globally. So that's our motherland. So for me, Windrush, Caribbean was a stop off. we shouldn't even be there in the first place. I shouldn't even be speaking to you in English. I shouldn't have the name Richard Douglas. So all that Windrush connects back to the fact that we was an enslaved people. I mean, I did my DNA and found out that I was 75% Nigerian, the rest of it was Senegal and Mali and Burkina Faso. And I was 100% African. So somehow through this Windrush and going all the way back to Africa, I have not been touched, or I don't know, by the colonialists. Somehow my bloodline has not been tampered with, or it says I was either a rebel, ran up in the hills, or I come from royalty, so just one or the other. I'm African via the Caribbean, here in Britain, born here by default. So really, I'm a product of the world. I want my passport to not say no country on it. Just want it to be passport. But that's not how it works. So I am African. North Jamaicans don't see themselves as African because of the mental slavery and all the history that's been messed up within our heads. But I'm African. That's why I see myself as. I don't take African, I take British Caribbean, but I'm African. No matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you're African. Peter Tosh. I say my music started in 1980. Well, I started at school rapping with my friends, Wayne and Anthony Whittingham and Ivan Turner and Leslie and Leon. We all used to rap together, Samantha Dennis, Chris Lee. So it was a little crew of us used to rap, and then I took it a little bit, I would say a little bit more serious than, in fact, yes, I did. I took it because I'm still doing it, none of you doing it. I took it a little bit more serious and we built a crew. We come out of school, we built a crew, and I used to get everyone to try and do demos. And then actually it's Ivan as well. And we used to write, me and Ivan used to write for everybody. And we built a crew called MC's Logic. And I was one of the rappers, and Big Trev was the dancer for the crew. We travelled around the country. We toured with Queen Latifah and Della Soul and blah, blah, blah. We got a record deal with a famous DJ called Graham Park. I was about 16, 17 at the time. So we was into it because hip hop was quite big in Nottingham in the 80s. And we kind of got into it through breaking and through that really. My brother-in-law, Kenneth, I say brother-in-law, that's what they used to call him. The brother-in-law, Kenneth Costello, he was seeing my sister, Dion, and he was the head of a crew called Assassinated. So that kind of pushed me in the direction of hip hop. Because I was I won't lie, I was a bit more of a reggae soul boy because V-Rocket was the major sound of the town, and they lived on my street. Valerie, I used to see Parliament, Ruben and Ricky and Ricky Stereo, Peter. They're all my age group, Rankin, the older ones, and Mr. Doogie who built the sound. Most of our generation from around it was all into reggae, and I was no different. And then hip hop, and my sister was into soul, and that's kind of why I kind of started listening to more soul music. And then hip hop came, like I said, and that kind of grabbed me. And I started rapping at about 15, and then, like I said, I got a record deal at 16, 17 with a label called Submission Square Dance Studios. And then from there, we had a producer, and he kind of was a bit lazy, Chisel. He was a bit lazy, and I kind of took the reins of production. I wasn't really a producer, it was a necessity because I wanted some beats. So, and then I actually preferred doing that than rapping. And then next wave of rappers started coming, a guy called Mr. 45 and Kitts and Ed Case and Tower. And when I heard them rap, I thought, oh, that's me done. I'm never rapping again because these guys are amazing. And I was pretty average with a weird American Nottingham accent, very strange. But people loved our songs, and people used to follow us around, and I used to put on parties as well at the same time. 16 years old at Boys Club, at the Centre, Spiders in Clifton. For me, Windrush means just taking a look and taking stock and saying, where are we now, where we're at present, and where we should be going in the future. and looking at the mistakes that we've made as a community and trying to battle those mistakes and do better now. Teaching the young ones, positioning ourselves better in society, politically, financially, education, across the board. In all the major institutes, we need to position ourselves better. And don't be quiet. You've got the strength for your ancestors to fight this battle, because they were strong and resilient people, because we're here now. And they went through that shit for 400 years. So we got strength. Don't be shy. Don't be scared. Use Windrush as a tool. It's 50 years of hip hop this year as well. And I've said this is the year to reignite it, put the juice back in, bring back the culture where it's been taken away from and gone into some corporate bullshit. The same with Windrush. We should look at ourselves and say, where are we? And why are we here? And what we can do better. And like I said, learn the lessons from our ancestors. We're still traveling. We're still on a journey. We're still trying to get to that place that or get back to what we had back in the days in Mali and Timbuktu and these massive societies and civilizations that they told us that we didn't exist. We was living in mud huts and we're not civilized. We were more than civilized. The Europeans came there in the Dark Ages to come see us. I was living civilized. So and somehow we'd be robbed of our history, our religion, our gods and all kind of things. So Windrush is just telling me that there's a big journey for us to travel back. My message is just learn our history, learn as much as we can about not just the Caribbean history, but our African history. Our African history will give us so much strength and understanding that, because we do have an inferiority complex that has been imposed on us, and it's taken a lot of years to get rid of those shackles that have been binding us. So learn about ourselves, learn about the strength and the power of the nations, the civilizations, and all the things that we've built that we've not been told. And then use that strength and knowledge and information, like I said, and apply it for us to move forward in every walk of society we can. If there's the politician out there, we need to support our black brothers and sisters in politics and on all walks of life. We need to get behind each other, but we've still got to fight and the struggle continues.